Hi. So how hot is it, right? But it feels great in here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our agency, but I want to sort of target some of the stuff in the presentation. I need to kind of know who's here, so maybe just a show of hands. So who's here representing a nonprofit arts organization? Who's here as an individual artist or creative? Ooh, okay, now I know where we'll spend more time. And has anyone here applied for any of our grants from Colorado Creative Industries, formerly Colorado Council on the Arts? You have? You have? Okay, good. So that's interesting because I'm going to talk about what we have going on in our programs and opportunities for organizations and individuals and some of our partnership things. And then we can have a little dialogue. I can talk to you about some other sites that I like to visit and that keep me sort of aware of things happening out there. And I might even talk a little bit about some trends in philanthropy that I'm seeing there. So, but let's be kind of informal. I'll go through the slides and you can stop and ask questions, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to do some interactive stuff. So here we go. So how did I come to this, my journey? None of you are old enough to remember, but I started my work in nonprofits in 1978 through the Comprehensive Employment and Training Act of 1971, or the CETA program, which was like a WPA program that connected people with nonprofits and work. And my first job was in Boulder, and I had to immediately write grants to maintain my position. So that's how I started. Over the years, I worked in nonprofit for over 25 years in small and medium-sized organizations, and always was responsible for raising money, writing grants, working with organizational structure, working with boards, which can be challenging in and of itself sometimes. And then I decided I needed a little break, and I did some consulting, and then I was asked to consult with the state, at that time Colorado Council on the Arts, now Colorado Creative District, to help rebuild some of the programs that they'd lost in funding in 2003. So I consulted for a few years, and then I came on board 11 years ago full-time. So I went from the grant seeker to the grant maker. So I tell you that because I do have true empathy for people who are looking for funding and writing grants. And I like to think that our team in our office is really customer service oriented, and they will help you. You should never be afraid to follow up with funders, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we are Colorado Creative Industries. We are in the Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which is part of the governor's office. So we're one of 11 divisions in that office. We are the official state arts agency. Every state has an agency that's the conduit of funds from the National Endowment for the Arts. And so that's our role, in addition to the programs we do specific to Colorado. So this is just a few of the areas that we have programs in. I'm not going to cover them all, but sort of the creative community development, grants and awards, professional development. We do the state's public art program, which I'll just mention briefly, and then sort of arts education or lifelong learning programs. And I'm going to touch very briefly on those areas, and then I'll go into more depth on what grants we offer and where else you might look for funding. Does that sound good? Okay. Don't make me tell a joke. So, I only know like 3. So, where do you think Colorado ranks in the U.S. for arts participation. Anybody got a guess? Huh? A, number 5? Number 1. All right, number 1. So this was from a study in, I think, 2016, and this is number 1 in arts participation. This also gives you some of the snapshots, which is now kind of old, to tell you the truth. I think the workforce is more like 180,000 or something. The earnings are higher. And the earnings in the arts and creative endeavors are 4.4% of the GDP, which is much higher than most other states. The revenue? I think it's over 800 million now in the revenue that comes from arts and creative endeavors. So feel proud of ourselves. So this is also the Arts Participation Survey. I don't know why I'm doing this because it's right here. Sorry. Number 1 of residents who personally perform or create artworks, 2 in attendance at films, 3 for literature, and number 1 overall. So this is from the NEA website, arts.gov, which is really, I'm always amazed. I forget to go in there and poke around. There's tons of really interesting data and research and information on that site, arts.gov. Okay. So how do we get our money? Again, we get funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. Every state agency gets funding based on population, and also some competitive funds around arts education or underserved populations. So that accounts for, I don't know my percentages today, but we get about $750,000 from the NEA. We get a flat $2 million from the state legislature. That comes from the gaming revenues, and that's in statute. And then our public art program collects 1% of capital construction costs for state public buildings. So most of them are colleges and universities. We've done a lot of stuff here. A few exceptions are the Ralph Carr Judicial Center in Denver, the Ute Museum in Montrose, the Colorado History Center, but mostly colleges and universities. So we administer those funds. And then we get a few gifts, grants, and donations. I'll talk to you about career advancement later, and that's a program for individual creatives. And we had some people that liked it so much that they decided they'd give us money to put into the pool, and that's specifically the Bohemian Foundation, which is based in Fort Collins and focused on music, and Illegal Pete's, which just is really good at supporting artists and creatives around. So they help fund that program for us. So our overall budget is $3 million, just under $3 million, which is pretty small. And we have, we have 6 staff to cover 64 counties. So, yeah, that's good. So the NEA funding, and this is hard to read. This just came, I got this yesterday. And so this is hard to read, but this is, you can go again to the NEA site, and they have a profile for every state. And this says some of the things that they've supported in Colorado over the years. Again, the 14.5 billion contributed to the state's economy. Everything that we get from, hi Kathy Webb.
Sheila, how are you?
I'm good. Everything that we get from the National Endowment for the Arts goes back out in grants and awards and goes back out into the community. We don't keep any overhead or operating. We turn that funding around and then add funding to it to go back out in the community. Some of the programs, I'm not going to go into depth on these, but some of them I think I'm going to talk about, just so you can go in and explore on our website, and some things that are, I think, also frankly inspiring. So we now have 23 certified creative districts, which is pretty huge. The program is now by invitation. There are certain prerequisites that communities need to complete before they're invited to apply, because we know it takes time and hard work. Thank you very much, Greeley Creative District. You've done an amazing job here. But it's this website here, infusion5.com, Beyond the Gallery. There are videos from every creative district that highlights one or more of the creatives in that districts, and they're inspiring. It's great. So there's our list of creative districts. I think last time I looked, they're about half urban and half rural. So we love that. Everything from Grand Lake to Grand Junction, inner city like Westward, Mancus, very small western communities. So all over the state, we're doing this important work and supporting creative districts. So you can read it yourself. Okay. Kathy, read it out loud for us.
Oh, goodness. Which creative district has 125 creative businesses, produces the Grammy Awards, was the film site for the movie True Grit, and has an alley art program?
Ridgeway. Yeah. Recently selected for the Space to Create program, which I'll tell you about. There's 900 people. Oh, they just hit 1,000. Their town administrator announced that they hit 1,000 people this year, and 10% of the population is artists or creatives. Yeah. Also, there's a tiny little shop there, John Billings, who's an old hippie that moved from California, and he actually makes the Grammy statues in Ridgeway, the actual statues that are awarded to the Grammys. So you can go visit.
Who casts them?
He does.
He does?
And he has an alloy that he invented,
Oh, wow.
and you can go visit. Yes. So
Drive through it all the time.
there's a lot of interest in the Creative Districts program throughout the state, because people can see how it revitalizes. I mean, what I've seen happen in Greeley over the past years, I mean, it's amazing. I'm not unfamiliar with old Greeley, and this new Greeley is pretty exciting. So, but that said, lots of communities may not be ready to say, you know, we're a creative district. So we've developed sort of a DIY program that's Call Yourself Creative, and it's callyourselfcreative.com. And it has all kinds of resources about branding your community, about things you can do to engage community members. And you can use any of it and use all the resources that are on there to sort of explore the ideas of creativity in whatever you define as your community. Go through this site, it's free, you don't have to do anything. And actually practicing through this site, this DIY, can be one of the prerequisites for communities to eventually be invited. So use it. You know, we've contracted with people to build it, and it's something that we want people to use. So callyourselfcreative.com. I wanted to tout Creative Forces for a minute. This is one of the things, and this is part of my other duties as assigned. As the Deputy Director, the National Endowment for the Arts began a partnership with the Department of Defense a few years ago called Creative Forces, with the intent of helping particularly service people with TBI and PTSD to use the arts to help heal. That became a model that they expanded 2 years ago to 11 sites, including Fort Carson. And we are now doing a pilot project that is militaryartsconnection.org. And it's really exciting in that the people that provide services to military active duty veterans and families are now able to refer their clients to specific artist or arts experiences. And it's a no cash, it's a barter experience that we've seeded the pot with credits so they can give credits to their clients to access arts experiences in the community. So it just rolled out. That website, militaryartsconnection.org, just was up and running like a month ago, but it's a great model. It is open right now only to artists in El Paso and Teller counties. Yes.
What kind of credits?
Well, like $25 per credit. So the artists get paid for everything they do, and they can set how many credits an experience is, but there's no cash that has to change hands. It's all managed by our partner, which is the local arts agency, the cultural office of the Pikes Peak region. This is for you as an artist to provide an arts experience to a service person or veteran, and you might say, I would like to do a weaving course, or I'd like to do a weaving class, and it would be 3 credits for an hour-and-a-half weaving class. They match them with you. You then would get the fee of $75 for doing the workshop. So it's a brand new kind of concept. We want to look at replicating it nationally because it's the way it uses no cash but credits. But the site's brand new, so look at it because it's exciting. I'd like everybody to kind of think about how we can connect artists with special populations in particular. And we absolutely believe that artists need to be paid in whatever they do. That's one of our values. So another program we do is Space to Create Colorado. And that is affordable live workspace for the creative sector. So this program is aimed primarily at rural communities. It's a partnership between the Department of Local Affairs, the Colorado Department of Housing, the Betcher Foundation, and other funders. And we help facilitate communities that want to provide affordable live workspace for creatives in their community. Loveland was the first one. It was not one of ours, but what's the name of the Loveland, the feed and grain? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's artist housing there. The first one that is in construction right now is in Trinidad. It'll have 40-some units. And then the next one is Ridgeway, and the one after that is Paonia. The next one will be selected. Because of this partnership, we're concentrating on more rural communities. So this is what will happen in Trinidad. It's really an entire city block. There will be housing and then retail on the ground floor. We work with a nonprofit organization called Art Space out of Minneapolis, and they will work with any communities of any size to explore whether there's an interest or demand for creative live workspace in the community.
That was called Artspace?
Artspace.org is the nonprofit developer.
Okay.
You can look at Space to Create on our website. It's one of our tiles. Public art. Okay, our public art program was established in 1977, and we now have over 500 works across the state. As I said earlier, this is this is something that's just for state buildings. So, but anybody that does large-scale public work can register. We do calls for entry. that are public, and we have someone in our office that administers that for the state. So arts education, a passion of mine. I did a lot of work in arts education over the years and lifelong learning. We don't have the bandwidth to have a robust arts education program with our 6 staff, but we've had a long-term contract with Think360arts.org, which is a statewide arts education organization. They provide teacher professional development and direct grants to schools. We also do, and please look at their website. Their artist roster is expanding. They have great resources for teachers and for schools and for artists who want to be teaching artists. We do a Native American after-school arts program that's a pilot we've been developing and hope to replicate. So it's Native artists and traditions in an after-school program for Native students. And we've developed a whole curriculum that we're hoping to particularly take other places in the state, including both the reservations. So. And then Poetry Out Loud is our statewide poetry recitation. I was doing this, I have a microphone on. Poetry Out Loud is a national program that we do with high school students who study and learn contemporary and classic poetry and go on to state and national competitions for a prize of $20,000. So high schools, anybody that works with high school students, I would love to have. Over the years I've had Greeley Central, I think, but we would love to have high school students. Fort Lupton, be great. You can find out more about that. The summit, so has anybody been to one of our summits? Yay. That's why you look familiar. Okay. So it's a great event focused on networking and professional development for the creative sector. And we were in Greeley 2 years ago. This last year we were in Salida, and drum roll, in May of 2020 we're in Steamboat, which will be really fun. Is it fun, guys? Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hot Springs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really good. Change Leader Program. I want to get to the funding. However, this is something that's an opportunity that I want to make sure you all know about. So the Change Leader Program it starts with a 3-day institute that helps you develop skills around leading change in your community, overcoming obstacles, negotiating, developing ideas and connecting people to make change. And we do 1 institute a year now and a symposium for certified change leaders. After you go through the institute, you have the opportunity to propose a project based in your community for which we give you a small stipend. And you complete that project and do a presentation on it, and then you're officially certified as a change leader. And we have a certified change leader right here, Kathy Webb. Yes. It's a great program. Each cohort is limited to 12, so there is a wait list generally, and we try to curate each class so that it's a great diversity of geography, ethnicity, age, gender. Case study, Andrew Schneider from Fort Collins. He came back and facilitated community visionings and garnered commitments that were gathered to stay in the work they're doing around creativity in Fort Collins. He's made a big impact. Kim Keith in Steamboat Springs brought the community together to facilitate developing a library of art supplies for low-income kids and families there that they could borrow or take as a great community resource. Okay. Are you guys ready? Okay. All right. So, I want to point out a couple of things that I don't know if hopefully there are handouts for everybody, but one of them on the table out there is Colorado Creative Industries grants. So that's what I'm going to go through right now, briefly, and there are, unfortunately, you can't have electronic copies, so I made sure there's an actual URL there. These are all on our website. But here's the challenge. Here's my challenge over the past 8 months. We had a really clunky, very user-unfriendly interface grant system. So we're in the middle of building a new one as we speak. I just had to access Google Drive to do some stuff. It's going to be really good, but it's delayed our usual June Colorado Creates grant deadline until September 2nd. And I think I put it in here, so I'll follow up with it. But this is our largest grant program for nonprofit organizations. And I know a lot of you are individual artists, but I'm sure you're all involved in arts organizations as well. So this is, those statistics are fairly recent. So again, we give out more than $1 million in general operating support. I think we're over 200 organizations per year statewide. So eligibility, 501c3, these are all in the guidelines. Primary focus on arts, visual, performing, literary, folk arts. We do not fund history. I get a lot, and I'm sorry for the history organizations, I really am. We just don't have enough funding for that. And then you have to have been providing programming for 3 years. You don't have to be a 501c3 for 3 years, but you have to show that you've been providing programming and have a minimum budget of $25,000. Okay. They're flat amounts based on budget, $4,000 to $10,000. All grants are general operating support. A few years ago, we turned them into 2 years grants because it was a lot easier on us and you to not have to go through an application every year. So now if you're awarded, with a midterm report, you get a second year of funding. And the report's very simple and easy. Then after 2 years of funding, we do a sit-out year just so our funding goes further around the state, and then you can come back in the next year. So generally, the funding period for this is the state's fiscal year, which is July 1 through June 30. This year, because of the new building the new system, this will be a September deadline. The grant period for this year only will start January 1 through December 31st, 2020. The second year will go through June. So you're basically, if you come in this year, you're getting 2 years worth of funding for an 18-month period. So it's not a bad time to come in. And then it will reset to that July to June cycle, and the deadline will be in June. So online applications submitted by 4 p.m. on September 2nd. Prepare this application in advance. How can you do that? The grant system's not up. What you will find on the guidelines are all the questions and all the attachments you will need. You can start working on that now. So you can work on whatever you're going to need to upload into the system in terms of support materials, and you can write the answers to the narrative questions. We believe the system's going to be up August 1st, which is a month for you to actually put that into the application and upload it. But it's much simpler than the old one. But read the guidelines thoroughly. Also, we have an applicant handbook on the website. And the applicant handbook is just good to look through if you're looking for grants in any case. But if this is something, you can also call us. But remember, these are general operating support, and you can find all of the questions and information in the guidelines on the website. And also that one sheet I showed you, that's the link to the guidelines. So these are some of the things, this is a heads up for you because all these grants are reviewed by panels. It's a peer panel process. And if you're interested in that, we also have a form online that you can sign up to be a reviewer. And it's the best professional development you can have as a grant writer, is reading other people's grants. So, but these are some of the questions that are on that application that I'm not going to go, that sometimes organizations have the most difficulty addressing specifically, and that the reviewers have difficulty if there's not complete and specific answers. So I just put 3. One is about collaboration, and it's really about thinking about what's a true collaboration other than, you know, they're letting me use their building. That's not a real collaboration, you know, but you're doing something together with another organization. The second one is your community that you're serving. So you get to define the community. It could be the city of Greeley. It could be the senior population in Fort Lupton. It could be, you know, disadvantaged kids in the, I don't know, something. But whatever that community is, for you to define it specifically and tell us how those people are involved in the program. Yes.
Would that cover libraries as well? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah. There's other things because we don't fund schools or libraries. I mean, just arts organizations or if we will fund municipalities, universities, or colleges as independent components. So if they have a structure that is separate from the whole university, it's all in the guidelines. Or, but you know, just because we don't have a lot of bandwidth there. Diversity and inclusivity. And how are you addressing it? You know, I mean, it's difficult work. Diversity and inclusion and equity work is difficult work. We know people struggle with it. What we just want to hear is how you're addressing it, you know, and how you're involving different communities. So after you've read the guidelines, if you're going for this, I'm going to spend more time on the individual one. You can always call us, but go through the guidelines and be thinking about. The handbook also has samples of good applications, you know, those kinds of things, what a good financial statement looks like. So, and you can always contact us for sure. Career advancement. So this is the one that is available to individual artists and creatives. This is a fairly new program, and we keep refining it because it is there to serve the individual artists, creatives, or for-profit small businesses. So it's reimbursement-based, and so it's matching. So you can request up to $2,500 if the cost of what you're proposing is $5,000. So that's the matching requirement. So after you've been matching is hard for some people, so I'm don't think I'm condescending. So what would happen is you would say, I have this project that's going to cost me $5,000. And if we say yes, you spend the $5,000 and you send us receipts and we give you back $2,500. So is that, I mean, matching is like, so the key to this is that your proposal, one second, the focus is how is this project or this funding going to provide you with tangible business benefits. So it's not, I want to start a career as a photographer. I need a whole new drum kit because, because I'm going to be a rock star. But it could be, I need to work with a management company to help me have a successful tour that I anticipate will bring me X percentage of increased sales on my internet music, those kinds of things. We've stepped back some on like equipment, but Eros and Eschaton, we did fund them for upgraded equipment that improved their live performances in studios, and their argument was that they were able to track increased revenue from sales of their CD. It's interesting, most people are really, really passionate about these things, but sometimes it's, you're in the creative mode, so be thinking about, being as specific and clear as possible. Be realistic in goals, I'm probably not going to believe you if you say, if I get this new display board, it's going to increase my sales by 5,700%. That's probably not realistic, but that's okay. 20%. Yeah, 20%? What, but I mean, it has to sound logical, I don't think I'd be breaking any confidences if I said, we've had some wingding ones, let me tell you. But you go, what? I had somebody turn in a receipt. I don't manage the program, but the program manager says, what this? And it was a receipt for, what was it? I don't even remember. But it was I think it had to do with somebody like creating an invoice that looked legit, but it was like, yeah, I don't know. And then we have one of our favorites was a photograph that somebody submitted of their finger on a grocery store receipt that had a bunch of tuna fish and hummus on the receipt. So, but
It's a sculpture.
yeah, I don't know. The sculpture, yeah, it was good. And her nails were perfect too, I'll tell you. But the thing is, try to be specific and measurable on how this will help you as a creative. And also, I'm talking individuals, but also small businesses. We used to have 2 deadlines a year, and we used to say to people, you apply here and for a project that is in this 6-month period. And you can't expend it before you get accepted, you can't expend it after, but there are 2 opportunities for you to do that. As of October 2nd, when it opens, something like that, when it opens, the new application will be a rolling deadline. And you can apply anytime, you can submit your receipts anytime, and before the end of the fiscal year, and we will fund until we run out of money.
So this needs to be something you've already done.
No.
You can project.
So, yes. So the deadline, or the first time you can apply this year will be October 2nd. It's on there. It's a rolling deadline. No, October 2nd is. It'll open, you can apply as early as October 2nd for a project that starts November 1st or later. So we have time to look at them. We turn them around in about 3 weeks or less. So you'll know, you don't have to wait like the other grant programs. You apply, we review, you get accept or denial, and you know that within about 3 weeks. Yes.
Is it highly competitive? I mean, is it something that,
It's not,
do you have more than enough money for the people who have legitimate requests?
we do, and we have, because of those partnerships I talked about, we have extra money for music projects because of Bohemian funding, and we have funding. We have some funding targeted to Larimer and Weld counties. So that's good news for you guys.
Could it be used to improve the studio, where you have costs, where you're giving classes?
If you can convince it that it would be a business benefit to you.
Like additional desks for more people?
Yeah, yeah. If you needed additional workspace because you have demand that you can't fill, and that will bring you more registration income, that's legit.
It would be people attending the class.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, that's, yes.
CCI website says October 2.
Thank you. So that's the first time you can submit. Thank you. Oh, God, you want to just do this? Come on. But yes, so part of it is, be specific, look at measurable benefits. Here's an example of how you would do a budget for this. So you notice salary, wages, or honoraria, you can't pay yourself. Supplies and materials, yes. Travel, yes. I think this was for an exhibit of some kind. You see framing and promotional postcards and business cards. So the total expense is $46.10. The income, they're asking for $22.80. They're saying their earned income, they're going to sell some stuff. They're going to put $1,360 of personal funds, and they're getting promotional materials worth $170 from the gallery. So you see how those balance? So that shows how you think you're going to match the funds. Okay. Taylor Cheetah is our program manager in our office, and she's wonderful, and she's very kind. That we always say there are no stupid questions. Please, we don't want anybody to spend time after you've thoroughly read the guidelines and looked at it. We don't want people to spend time on things that aren't going to be eligible or they're not going to be successful. Not that you're always going to be successful if you talk to us, but let us be helpful if you have questions after you've thoroughly read the guidelines, she says from an administrator's view. This is the one that, God, I'm just talking. This is the one that's most exciting, and I want you guys to think about this one because I want you to spread the word on this one. So the handout we have here, the Arts and Society was on the table. This is now the third year of the Arts and Society program. Because again, and I'm not complaining, but we have such a small staff for all of these things we do. We've been wanting for some time to do a program that was being able to support projects that were at the intersection of social issues or social justice issues, equity issues, and the arts that involve non-arts organizations, maybe arts. We call it the Arts And program. So arts and health, arts and immigration, arts and name it. I'm getting tired, folks. But so we, 2 years ago, we partnered with the Bonfils Stanton Foundation, which is a Denver-based foundation and only funds in Denver. The Humera Foundation, which is based in Boulder and is very supportive of social justice causes. And the three organizations pooled our money to develop this Arts and Society program. This year, we have 2 new partners, the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, which funds in the 7-county metro region, and Colorado Health Foundation, which funds statewide, and I mean, we're so excited about the Health Foundation coming in to support the arts programs that can intersect with healthy communities throughout the state. So we have more money this year, and it's really for support of cross-sector projects that implement the arts in helping to address social or community issues. That one-sheeter that I have out there is a much better explanation than I can give you, except as sort of, I could give you some examples if I could think of any, but let me get to the heart of the matter here. The process is, the first step is that you do a LOI, I'm sorry for the acronym, a letter of interest or a letter of intent, which is a very brief, it's an online form, so it's the length of a letter. And that gets reviewed, and then you're invited to submit a full application. So this is the schedule for that. So the upcoming deadline is September 16th for the letter of interest. And this grant is administered by Redline, which is a contemporary art center in Denver, because again, we can't administer everything. And they are very helpful. They're offering consultations with the program directors. Again, you go to the Redline link here for all of the information about it. You can also look at the great projects that it's funded. And if I can think of any, I will. But we are particularly interested in we want our funds for CCI. We want all of our funds now, and we contribute $100,000 to this. And we want all of our funds to go outside the metro area. So you guys fit that bill. We're also looking at rural communities along with Colorado Health, who also funds outside the metro area. And they're putting, I don't even know what they're putting in this year. So we have a bigger pot available to people outside the metro area this year.
Is Greeley considered a rural area?
It's outside the 7-county metro area, yeah. I'm working to change rural Colorado terminology to greater Colorado. What do you guys think? I love it too, because anyway. That's why, before I retire, I'm going to make it happen. So particularly interested in proposals from non-arts organizations. So it could be a health center, it could be a mental health center, it could be a youth organization, it could be a church. Read their guidelines. We cannot, the state can't fund churches. That's by statute, we can't fund religious organizations. But part of it is that it has to be that cross-sector. So it has to be arts and. Maybe it's a rescue mission. Maybe it's something within the church, a food bank. But how are the arts and the food bank addressing food deserts or food waste? Those kinds of projects in a creative or artistic way. Does that make sense? Yeah. But please, anything I talk about, read the guidelines first and read examples of what have been funded. And because, again, we're going to tell you that sounds like it could be competitive or it's not going to be strong. This is a very competitive round because it's also pretty high dollar. I think you can get funded up to $50,000, and you have 2 years to complete a project. It's a lot more money than we can give as a state. So these are competitive, but it also involves a learning community so that you meet with other grantees and get professional development and support through that. It's a great program. So generally it's also not going to be your regular existing programs unless that's something that you do that's cross-sector already. Authentic partnerships, and that sort of mantra we have of with, not for the community. So everybody, it's great because you want to do something for a community you see in need, but you need to assure that they need or want what you're offering them, and you need to show that in your application. And, I can send this PowerPoint to Becky, and you guys, you can post it? Yeah. Because I didn't include live links on these things because I didn't. But I will just summarize. Americans for the Arts, huge resource in all areas. And they have a brand new, it's a tool that specifically addresses, they have all these statistics and examples of, they have a sheet that's arts and military, arts and aging, arts and youth development. And it's full of statistics and it's great stuff. They have lots of resources. If you can afford a membership, it's worth it. There's lots of free stuff too. Colorado Attorneys for the Arts, which is part of Colorado Business Committee, they will give you free legal services as individuals, artists and creatives. We've been doing workshops around the state with them. It's a great resource if you can't afford, who can, attorney services. It might be something around copyright or infringement or even, other legal areas. Colorado Business Committee for the Arts, they try to connect arts and business, and that's one of their programs is the attorneys. The Arts Education Partnership is a national organization that's funded by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Education Commission of the States, and it is a resource for everything you need to know about best practices in arts education, research, all kinds of things. If that is something you're interested in arts education partnership is the go-to site. In our office also exists Colorado Office of Film, Television, and Media is in our office. They do educational programs. They support local film festivals and promote the film and media in our state. Western States Arts Federation is our regional arts organization. We're 13 Western states, and they have support, particularly like for touring, for performing arts, those kinds of things. Creative Capital and Fractured Atlas are both great sites that have a lot of innovative work, particularly for individual artists. Colorado Small Business Development Network, also out of our office. I know you have SBDC centers here. I already talked about that. Springboard for the Arts, a great organization out of Minnesota that has both great individual artists and community resources. Really exciting work that they're doing there. Creative Capital Artist Toolbox, any of these. Wage, I was trying to remember what Wage was. Working Artists in the General Economy. It's a group out of New York that's looking to increase the wages of individual artists. So it's really interesting. Yeah. So, let's see, do I have anything else? What are you going to follow up on, guys?
Everything.
Everything? Okay. So you can follow up with us. We do have time. I mean, you can ask general questions, individual specific questions. I know the other thing I didn't put in the presentation. I didn't know I was going to do a presentation till last night. I've been building a new online grant system. So for nonprofit grant resources, a couple of things. Colorado Nonprofit Association and Community Resource Center. And Community Resource Center publishes the Colorado Grants Guide, which is a comprehensive, up-to-date listing of grants that in Colorado that you can get, not just arts, but
Is that just for nonprofits?
I think it is, or I think it's primarily for nonprofits. I don't know, I haven't looked at it in a long time. I think it is for nonprofits, because most of them will be foundations and those kinds of things. Yeah, another thing just is the Alliance for Artist Communities, which is a international alliance of people who do artist residencies. So sometimes those are paid, sometimes you pay, but it's a really good site. If that's something that interests you, or you're interested in the whole notion of artist residencies, is the Alliance of Artist Communities.
That's
Questions?
where it
Jokes?
starts to begin.
So I think we want to especially thank Sheila for coming out.
Oh,
and-
thank you. Thanks. My cards are on the table. My cards are on the table.